Hey, good evening, everybody. Dirk Delirium, welcome back. Welcome to Scared Sober, and of course, this is on our YouTube channel, which is Scared Sober, Delirium Tremens, rather, Scared Sober. One of the things that frightens a lot of people in the program, and again, I'm not the face of AA, I'm not the face of NA, I'm not the face of CAHA or NEA, but we all have steps that we work and we follow, and it took a long time before I even understood not only how to do it or why I was even being suggested to do it in the first place. So anyway, my whole premise here is with Scared Sober is some people are scared of the steps. So I'm literally just going to take my version, the way my sponsor worked with me, just 1 through 12, and just kind of laid out there. And again, this is not a format necessarily to follow. I would recommend personally that you follow whatever your sponsor suggests you follow, that person that you're working with, whether you're whatever program you're in, and take their suggestions. But this might you take a little of the fear out, and or at least take some of the anxiety out about, oh, it's so much work and it's this, that, and the other. So I'm going to start with step one. A lot of people in the program that I follow don't do any actual work when it comes to step 1, 2, and 3. They just say, okay, I'm powerless, and my life's becoming manageable. Yeah, okay, you're done. And I did that, and then, the second, we're going to move right into, that I came to believe a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. Okay, I think I do. Okay, we're done. And then make a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of whatever that higher power concept is. Okay, good, I'm done. Well, there's 1, 2, and 3, and I'm already on 4. Okay, if that's how your sponsor wants to work with you on it, I'm not saying that that's a bad way, because if it does work for somebody, that's great. But I will tell you this: it did not work for me at all, and I tried these things over and over again. And it wasn't until I got real and worked with a sponsor who, for lack of better words, was a real hard ass and wouldn't sugarcoat anything, and he didn't let me manipulate him in any way, shape, or form, that this program finally actually worked. And it was somewhere between around step 6 and 7 out of just 12. There's only 12, it's nice and easy. But somewhere between 6 and 7 or thereabouts, the obsession to drink and use was lifted. And I can't explain that, I can't put it into words, but I can tell you it really truly does happen. No matter whatever your addiction is, it does go. And prior to that, when I was working, 1, 2, 3, and you're done, okay, let's go on to 4, take 5 months to do it, and all this horse shit that just didn't fly for me. That obsession to drink and use was never lifted. I wanted desperately to believe that it was lifted, so what I found myself doing was trying real hard to believe it wasn't there, when it was in fact the whole time. And inevitably, and that took 3.5 years, twice, but I always went back out and drank or used again, and immediately found myself worse than where I was when I let off the first time. So anyway, that being said, we're going to keep this real simple and focused. This is step 1 as it reads from the book I follow. It says, we admitted we were powerless over substance, and that our lives had become unmanageable. My book states alcohol. So the questions that I had for step 1, this is how I was directed, again, to use it by my sponsor. I was to list 10 examples of powerlessness, 10 examples of unmanageability, and last, what do I want out of sobriety? And for me, it was this time, because I, again, had been in and out and in and out and in and out for decades. So 10 examples of powerlessness. First off, what is powerlessness? And this is straight out of the Little Big Book Dictionary. Powerlessness is without power, defenseless, ineffective, lacking in strength, power, or authority. And unmanageability is beyond our ability to influence, direct, predict, or sustain one's life in a satisfactory, required, or desired fashion. Goes without saying. Not able to find ways to get along in a desired manner, not being able to influence, control, predict the nature or behavior of my actions or my lifestyle. Yeah, I say that pretty much sums up my unmanageable life. So again, I was asked to list 10 examples of powerlessness, and these are just mine. Everybody's are going to vary, but I think the common thread with addiction, with people in recovery, is that a lot of these are going to cross over. So the first example for me was I was without power to influence others. No matter how hard I tried or wanted someone to believe what I wanted them to believe, it truly was out of my control. And the more I drank and used, the less control I had over that. My second example, without power over laws, legal. I have no control over the speed limit. I have no control over the fact that I'm not allowed to be in public drunk and disorderly, although I was. I had no power over the fact that I'm not allowed to drive drunk, although I did it, or under the influence of narcotics, which was common. I do not have power over nature. I don't have power over the rain. I don't have power over whether it's going to be a sunny day. That's completely beyond me. This is a big one for me. Defenseless against the first drink or drug. And it is, for me, the first drink or the first drug that always gets me hammered. Once I start, and it goes right back to what's stated in a little chapter that I read called The Doctor's Opinion, who is a lot smarter than me, that says once I start, the phenomenon of craving kicks in, whether it's drugs or alcohol, and I cannot stop until I'm either arrested, institutionalized, hospitalized, or dead. And that's the only one that hasn't happened to me yet. But those are the only other ways that I can stop once I start. And that goes right along with powerless to stop after the first drink. So again, to reiterate, once I begin, I don't stop. Powerless over my actions once I start to use or drink. My actions are terrible. The way I treat people, the way I treat myself, it's embarrassing. But that's just goes par for the course. And with that, I am powerless over the consequences. If I drive drunk, I'm going to be arrested and I'm going to get sent to jail. I have no say in that whatsoever. If I am in my relationship and I continue to drink, even though I lie and say even though I might believe it and say I'm not going to, then I am powerless over divorce, which is a consequence. Or strife, or separation with children, or separation with the family, and the list goes on and on. Next example of powerlessness for me, powerless over others' thoughts of me. Now that's very true in both active addiction and sobriety, which is kind of nice today in sobriety because I can, flat out say I don't give a fuck if you don't like what I have to say because it's not my problem, it's yours. And that's okay. I mean, I don't need to say it verbally in that context, but I can know that within myself that whatever someone else's opinion is, it's not going to change or affect how I do things. And I do know, as a person in recovery, that if I do the same things that I did yesterday, today, there's a real good chance that I probably won't drink or use before midnight. And that's good enough for me. And then tomorrow, I'll deal with it then, when it gets here. And it'll be the same answer as long as I do what I did yesterday. But your opinion or someone else's opinion doesn't really matter. Again, if they don't like what I'm doing, it's their problem, not mine. And that's a much easier place to be than overcomplicating it and taking on all somebody else's inventory. It's not necessary. I'm powerless over the strength to change when I use. Simply because of the thing I spoke of a moment ago, I just can't stop. Last, ineffective with dealing with life on life's terms. I am a complete derelict. When I use and when I drink, I become disgustingly and dangerously antisocial. I become I retract from everything. It wasn't always that way in the beginning, of course not, but as this disease progresses, that's how it affected me. And I would put off anything that I was required to do. I'll deal with it tomorrow. And it says right in the book that I read that our problems pile up on us until they become astonishingly difficult to solve. And the only way I would solve them would be by drinking or using, and then those problems and more would still be there the next day. So there's my 10 examples of powerlessness. Okay, 10 examples of unmanageability. When using, I became unmanageable over gainful employment. I was as dependable as I wasn't. If I said I'd be somewhere and I showed up on time, great. Didn't happen often, and if I did, I was probably already under the influence. Great. Not a real strong point for any human resources department last I checked. I was unmanageable over my finances. I couldn't, I always found the money to get what I wanted, but I wasn't able to take care of my basic needs at the end. It was pathetic. Um, Third example, I was unmanageable over personal relationships. Terrible. Whether it was with a family member, with a loved one, or simply a friend. And I didn't have any of those at the end because I was unmanageable over those relationships. I would lie, cheat, and steal. And that's what my reputation turned into, and that's not healthy for any relationship. My fourth example, I was unmanageable over any faith or / higher power, which is my own conception of God as I understand it. I don't care what anybody else's is. I have no direction for you there because it's a personal choice. And in the beginning, my God and my understanding was nothing more than the people in the fellowship of recovery that I could look at and knew that they were being successful at this, where I kept failing. So they had something that I didn't have, and it was really important for me to try and understand what that was. And thank God I finally was able to grasp that. And it was not until I was willing, willing to look at that, and just willing to believe there was something bigger than me. And it says, willingness is the key, and that's all we need to begin. And this is step one. This is the beginning. So as long as I have willingness, I'm good. My next example, I was unmanageable over my reactions. I would have a knee-jerk reaction to anything anybody would say or do. I would immediately blurt out my response, which was what was going through my mind. Rather than respond, I would react. Rather than take time to think things through, I would just blurt out the first thing that was on my mind. And I got news for you. When I was drinking and using, the first thing on my mind was never, ever the right thing, although I might have believed it at the time. My next example, I was unable to be a productive citizen. I couldn't be trusted by authorities, by family, by friends. I was a hurricane. Everybody's life I touched, I fucked up. Whether I knew you for 5 seconds or 25 years, if you came in contact with me, I would do everything within my power to destroy your life for that brief moment of time that I knew you, no matter what. It was just a hurricane. Terrible. And it was all too selfishly to get what I wanted. My next example is I was unmanageable in controlling others. People will do a lot to support you if they either like you or respect you, and ideally both. But if they don't like you, and more importantly, if they don't respect you, and why would they? Why would anybody respect me when I was in active addiction? They will do everything they can to work against you, or me, rather, when you need them the most, when I needed them the most. And that was just, that's normal, but it's a hard concept for an addict or an alcoholic, because we want people to do what we want them to do. My way is the right way, and we try and manipulate and control, but that doesn't truly work. This goes hand in hand with powerless. I was unmanageable with life on life's terms, all the way around. Number 9 and number 10, I was unmanageable as a husband, and I was unmanageable as a father. I could not manage my life as a responsible adult in either one of those situations, or any others for that matter. But I destroyed relationships with people that were close to me, and unfortunately that's affected my childhood. That's not something that comes back quickly. That's probably something that I'll be working on for the rest of my life. So those are my 10 examples of powerlessness. Those were 10 examples of unmanageability. Again, just mine. No right or wrong answer here. But then the last question was, what do I want out of sobriety this time? And my answer originally, and I share this with everybody that I work with today, all the sponsees that I work with, they hear exactly what I'm sharing with you. Um, but what I want out of sobriety this time, the ability to function, the ability to live life, capitalized, not die, work on my relationship with my God of my understanding, my higher power, and the real kicker, help others. And then I wrote, and I find this interesting to look back on, everything else will fall into place. And incidentally, it has. It doesn't mean that all of my problems are going to go away, of course not. It just means I have a better way of dealing with them, and I deal with it without using drugs or alcohol. Anything that I put in my body that's going to alter the way I think or feel is a very dangerous place for me to go. So I, for myself personally, just have zero tolerance for it, and thus far it's worked. And I don't have to think about it for the rest of my life. I just have to worry about it for today. And like I said, tomorrow I'll worry about it for that. So that is step one for me. Again, it was a little bit of work. 10 examples of powerlessness, 10 examples of unmanageability, what I want out of sobriety this time, and then really the kicker, sharing that with the sponsor that I trust, the person that I work with, and that brought me through these steps the way they were brought through. So rather than just saying, are you powerless over alcohol in your life, become unmanageable? Yeah, okay, next. I had to dig a little bit deeper, and that's what was effective for me. So anyway, that is step 1 of 12 as I dealt with it. Join us soon. We're going to go ahead and post step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, right on through the end. And my extreme hopes here is that this may take out, one, any of the fear that people might have over working the steps. 2, give you a little insight into, how less than complicated it really is, but you need to examine your own self and have your own answers. And 3, that if I can do it, anybody can. And if it's successful for me, I honestly believe, fully believe that this program, any program of recovery, can work for anybody. So that's what I have. Last but not least, we do have a Facebook group. If you go to your groups and search Alcoholics/Addicts Living Recovery, and that's capital Living Recovery with 3 exclamation marks. That's our group. You're welcome to join. It's open to the public. There's a lot of interaction out there, and of course you can always find me on Facebook at Dirk Delirium on Facebook, and of course the webcast, which is Delirium Tremens Scared Sober. I had that backwards, Scared Sober - Delirium Tremens. I will also be posting my 3rd experience with delirium tremens as soon as we finish up the 12-step segment. And that being said, thank you all for joining us. We appreciate having you here, and I value your comments and feedback. It's been awesome so far, so we'll keep that trend rolling. Thanks a lot. Have a wonderful day. Thanks.